close are these things? How close to me are these three laws of creation really? Or how separate, how different are they? The ways of looking at it.
I like the distinction that's made in the last question. They use these one words that helps you understand how they're different. One word, the rule word, you kind of dominate the land, and you decide on its use, even if it might not be a good idea for your neighbors or whatever. The whole idea of landlord, you're still kind of there, but it's like you're doing this in relationship with a larger community. And the whole idea of sibling, which is, I think, in some ways, it's the most contemporary way of thinking of our relationship with the environment. I was saying here, and science has been a part of that too. There's a scientific word called Gaia, which refers to the fact that all humans, all species, human and otherwise, are part of one living organism. And that all of us are required in order to survive with each other. So the whole idea that we're not the lords, we're not dominating, but we are one species. Certainly we have an advantage as a species over others. But the other thing is, for me, it's also quite ancient, because it also goes back to indigenous culture, who very much saw themselves as being part of a larger world of which they weren't dominating at all, that they were just part of it, like Native Americans here in the United States.
That's what Linda said, right?
Yeah, so in some ways it's even more ancient than the domineering model, which I think the domineering model came from the medieval period, and especially industrial revolution. It's endemic in our culture, certainly. I think all three operate, to be quite honest, in one way or another.
I was telling Faith that, but one of the things that I thought was interesting about what he said is that in Genesis 1, there are two creation stories, right? Do Genesis 1 to say this is more about dominion, and Genesis 2 to say this is more about stewardship, because that word is keep it till. And then he went to the creatures to talk about kinship. He didn't really quote scripture as much to talk about kinship. He talked about the creatures, which I did make a copy of before you go on the call, which we'll do. You can take it later in a couple minutes and just want to look at it if you want to pray on it or whatever. Any other thoughts about that? About what he said? Were you having an animated discussion over here? Anything good?
We talked a little bit about the gifts we've been given in the environment, but then overlaying on top of that personalities or the differences in personality. Even, I mean, we all know it, and the psychological fields are alive and active today, but different people look at things differently. Some people need strength and power, some people are interdependent. This is my explanation of what I'm talking about. And that changes everything. And right now, with the United States, it's the billionaires who are taking over the government. And this to me is amazing, totally amazing. But I mean, it leads us to other things. The fact that we are interdependent, as Father Carl has said, is very true. It's very true. And we can't do what we want. We have to clean up after ourselves.
Thank you, Marilyn. One of the things I was thinking of, Father Carl was just talking, I read something, it's pretty true, about how much of creation can do without us, but can we do without it? Which puts things in perspective. I know what you said about everything being connected, interconnected, so there are parts of creation, other creatures that may need what we do. But forests can grow without people. We can't do it without forests. I thought that was an interesting perspective to say that, we're not necessarily the ones that provide for everything else. nature provides for us. And one of the things Father Carl said at the very beginning reminded me, I'll speak a little bit, I don't mention his name, I'll talk a little bit about Laudato Si, but Pope Francis doesn't, in the footnote he talks about, there's a Jesuit priest who was a scientist, his name is Teilhard de Chardin, and he was in the 1950s, I think, or 40s. He was banned, one of those people who don't listen to this guy. But what he really talked about was that everything was all connected, and that we are a part of everything, and that everything is on its way back to God, which is what Pope Francis talks about, not mentioning Teilhard de Chardin. And one of the things, and we did mention it in the footnote, but before I saw the footnote, I said, oh, he's channeling Teilhard de Chardin. I'm not the Jesuit, which is interesting. Any other thoughts? Yes?
Yeah, I just want to point to the kinship. When he was talking about kinship, he mentioned love, concern, and devotion. And I think that you're seeing the concern part. We're doing a better job watching what's happening in the elementary schools of really teaching kids to be aware and concerned. So I think that's where our hope lies, is like just bringing the awareness to the importance of that.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? People want to share? Oh. Feel like so valuable.
I was just thinking of that first thought about the gift that was being created and then it was being destroyed. And I was wondering, this earth that God has given us, and I wonder what He's thinking about the way that we're taking care of it or not taking care of it, and maybe destroying it. And I was thinking about how the American Indian is so interconnected with the earth that they were in love with the earth. And so because of that love and connection with the earth, they took care of it. And when sometimes it's compared to a spider web, when one of the strands is broken, the whole web starts to fall apart. And I'm wondering how we can get those strands to come back together, and how we can fall in love with the earth the way they did, and how our Heavenly Father loved us so much that He gave us this earth, that we can love it enough to give it back to Him in one piece.
Thank you. Okay, any other thoughts? Okay. The last piece of paper that's in that packet is St. Francis's Catechism of Creation. It's going to look at what's in the last. Okay. Right, so that's what the calendar was referring to. That's the translation that I found. It doesn't start off with Laudato Si in English. But you can take it, we're going to take a little break, just for we can either use the restroom, go say a prayer outside, or do this. We'll take a little break, we'll come back, we have a short video to watch, talk to you a little bit about Laudato Si, some time to think about it, then we're going to do a little reflection.